So for the last 43.5 hours, I've been looking for a bolt that fell out of the valve cover with a little rubber O-ring grommet on it. And I can't find it for nothing. The thing was sitting right here. I heard it hit metal. Gone. Apparently it went out the door, got on a bus, and it's heading for another county. I made the corporate decision last night. I'm going to do the wrongest possible thing. I'm putting this sucker back together the way it is. It ran fine. So the weather's finally started to cooperate again. It's not negative 174,000 Fahrenheit. So I'm going to go through and pull the valve covers off of this. It's only one valve cover. It looks like two. Pull that off. Clean everything up. Put a new valve cover on it because since the transmission went out on the thing, this motor's just been screaming. And you know, when the transmission slips, the engine goes way up, or trying to go over 40 miles an hour with only second gear, and it just so blew gaskets on the valve cover. The only thing that I'm going to do to this motor, hopefully, once I get the valve cover off, I'm going to get in here and take a look at the timing chain and gears and just see if there's how much slop's there. If it's not too bad, I'm not messing with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, see if you can find a way to not fix it. I am going to fix it if it is broke. But when I pull the valve cover off, I'll be able to take this and just kind of move the engine around, move the chain and gears, and just see how much slop I've got in there. I'm sure there's some. If it's not horrible, I ain't going to mess with it. I'm sure that these spark plugs have oil down in them because they had oil in them before, and I never did anything about it. So all that oil down in there in those spark plugs, not really good. I'm going to fix the problem, but I don't want to pull these spark plugs out until I suck up some of that oil with this whole rag. I don't want to pull the spark plugs out and have a bunch of oil run down in on top of the pistons. Then I've got a cylinder full of oil, and when I start it, if I ever start it again, it's going to smoke. Oh, wow. At least I don't have to worry about it getting seized up with all that oil down in there. Get out of there. Yep. Look at that. Beautiful thing. Probably going to buy new plugs. Yeah, it looks like it's about time. So I thought about it and thought about it last night. This timing chain, well, it looks good right here, right? But turn that engine over a little bit. And look at that. She gets a little sloppy. She gets a lot sloppy. There it is. Look at that. I can almost take this thing off. And I thought about it, you know, and what needs to happen is all of this needs to come off. There's gaskets involved. There's all kinds of whirligigs and tensioners and springs and tighteners and stuff in there. And I've got to change, I'll have to change these bolts, and I'd have to change the gears, and I'd have to change to do it the right way. And I'm not doing it the right way. I'm not. It'd be just like peeling an onion. Because when you get that off and you get in there, then there's a water pump issue that you might as well change while you're in there. And if you keep doing things, well, if I keep doing things that I might as well do, well, then I might as well just scrap the whole car and start over, buy something else. So I'm going to do the absolute wrongest possible thing. Don't ever do this, because this is horrible. It should be changed, and I'm not changing it. I'm also not changing the spark plugs. I could go down to the auto parts store, get some high performance plugs, or some new ones, or even some clean used ones. And with the new spark plug, the thing is, what happens is this is sitting in the engine bolted in, and the coil's plugged on here, and what happens is the coil sends a signal and a spark, and the spark comes out, if you can see it, the spark comes out of this little electrode down here, and it arcs to this piece of metal, which is grounded out through these threads that are in the block. So it makes a spark, and when that gas and air are compressed in the cylinder, that spark causes an explosion and forces that piston down, which is what creates power. So with the old spark plugs, what happens when you clean them up is the coil sits on here, and it sends a signal to spark, and it sends that spark down through this electrode into this metal, which is grounded through being bolted into the block. And when the gas and air are compressed, that spark causes an explosion, which causes power. So I got all the surfaces cleaned up, changed some of the gaskets, not all of them because it was hard to do and I got tired of doing it. So putting the new rebuilt spark plugs back in. I just get under the crank pulley and turn it, and you can see that starts turning in there, and there's the hole ready to go. Problem is, this canyon down in here, you drop a bolt in that and it's game over. It all has to come back apart. So don't drop a bolt down in there. And my secret to not dropping a bolt down in there, hopefully, it's my last line of defense. Just throw a rag in there to catch it in case you drop it. Lots of Loctite, lots of tighten that sucker up. Flex flywheel, flex plate has been known to crack. Bolts have come loose, and when that happens, it rattles and bangs and clunks. Sounds like you got a rod knock. And actually, that's kind of what I suspect what's going on with the Monte Carlo. Maybe not. It's just it does have that tone to it. It's a real tinny, clappy sound down deep, but it kind of radiates through the whole engine because it's all, well, it's right there in that big speaker. You're not supposed to reuse these. I do sometimes because I don't want to go buy another one. Red thread locker, lots of it. I ride a Harley, so I know all about this stuff. Get up in there very carefully. Do not drop it, do not drop it, do not drop it. I'm about to drop it. Once you get her started, get started. All right, I think that one's started. I take a, oops, that's the wrong one. I take my flexible extension so I can get a real good grip on it. Just to do it by hand to get it started in there. Once that's started, then you can switch over. That way you know you're not going to drop that thing. That'd be the end of it for me. I would just throw this in the back of the car, call the junkyard to come out and pick it up. Tight, tight, tight. Super tight. I might even put the impact on it in a little bit. Don't let that come loose. And we go to the next one. Crank her on over. So we see the next. There it is. Yeah, she jumps in right on the compression stroke. This is where the starter bolt's on, by the way. This is the starter hole. This is the only access that you have to those torque converter bolts, which is silly to me because I'm so old school that you can lay underneath the car and get to them in most cases. Again, this is out of my expertise. I'm just playing around with a car that's about junk anyhow. The body on the car is super nice. The interior is super nice. It's just had a lot of miles, a lot of high-speed highway miles on it. And I'm not the most gentle person on a vehicle. So, oops, I'm going to put my rag back in before I screw this one up. And so it's in. I just got a couple of motor mount bolts to put in, and then it's time to start hooking up wires and hoses and cables, and I've got to, put the trap door back on it. It's going to be a whole lot easier to put all the accessories on, and I think I'm going to leave that so I can just take it on and off instead of welding it back on. I thought about just tacking it back on, but then I can change whatever needs to be changed in the future, if it even runs once I'm done. But cutting the whole front of the car off made it a whole lot easier, and it probably would have been even easier if I'd have done it the right way. But you might start to notice a pattern forming with me and doing things the right way.